Hey there, everybody. Dave Valente, the Thursday Night Hockey Show. Thank you for joining us tonight. Busy week in the NHL, busy week in the world of sports, and we'll get into some of that in a little bit. Busy week with the World Junior Hockey Championships that are wrapping up tonight. In fact, the game for Canada and Czechia is starting right now. So, lots to talk about. We had a wild bronze medal game between the United States and Sweden, and uh, just some craziness going on in the NHL this week, and let's dive right into it. Let's take a look at the tonight in hockey or the evening in hockey. We've got several games starting at 7 o'clock. We've got the Coyotes in Philadelphia to face the Flyers. Coyotes have not been that bad this year. Yeah, in fact, they're right around the same level as the Flyers. Flyers have been great this year, but Coyotes have not been as bad as people thought that they would be. Um, Rangers will be in Montreal to host the Canadians. Canadians are in free fall right now. Rangers are starting to pick up their game a little bit. Carolina looking to get Max Pacioretty back tonight against the Predators. So that game will be at 7 o'clock. The Kraken will be in Toronto to face the Maple Leafs. Both teams in playoff position, and some big news for Seattle coming out of the Winter Classic this week. The Devils will be hosting the Blues at 7 o'clock, and the Caps and Blue Jackets. This will be the ESPN game of the week. We'll have some news coming out of that game, but the Capitals are in Columbus to face the Blue Jackets. Capitals been pretty hot lately, and the Blue Jackets have not this entire season. Then we have a wide stretch of time between that game starting and the next game starting in in at 9 o'clock in Edmonton. The Edmonton Oilers will face the New York Islanders. The Canucks will be hosting the Avalanche at 10 o'clock. At 10 o'clock, the Pittsburgh Penguins will be in Vegas to host the goal or to face the Golden Knights. And our final game of the evening, the Red Hot Boston Bruins are out in Los Angeles to take on the Kings. So that's the schedule this evening. Evening packed with hockey, starting from 7, running probably until about 1 o'clock this morning with that late game in LA. So two really good teams. Looking forward to that matchup later this evening, although I probably won't be able to watch it because I got to go to work in the morning. So let's talk about what's going on in the world of hockey. Let's see. Boston won the 2023 Winter Classic this week. Let me get rid of this screen here. They won the Winter Classic this week at uh, with a 2-1 come from behind win over the Pittsburgh Penguins. So it was a very entertaining game. Kind of a pyrrhic victory for both teams. Well, for the Bruins, at least. Coming out of that game, the guy who scored both goals for the Bruins, Jake DeBrusk, um, suffered an injury. He's on long-term injured reserve, and the Penguins lost their goaltender Tristan Jarry. Not sure how long he's going to be out for. Jake DeBrusk is on long-term IR, so he's at least 24 days or 10 games. Could be longer. DeBrusk has an injury to the lower body and a hand injury, so he's out for a little bit. Jari looked to tweak something in the first period of the game, and he was pulled. Probably about he tried to play for another 5 or so minutes after he appeared to injure himself. Um, and then they brought in Casey DeSmith to back him up. DeSmith didn't play a bad game. He held the Bruins off the score sheet until about midway through the third period, and it was a late goal from DeBrusk to win it. Uh, Pittsburgh had a nice push at the end. Malkin appeared to score, but it was already after the game had finished. You could see the green light on when the puck crossed the line. So, but it was a very entertaining game. Some really cool things. You had Bobby Orr come out, and they the way they worded it, it said the first puck pitch, and usually at the start of a game you just drop the puck. This was interesting. They had, I believe, Jason Varitek, the former catcher for the Boston Red Sox, out there, and Bobby Orr stood up on a elevated plate. It wasn't quite a mound, but he shot the puck towards Varitek, and Varitek caught the puck. on the ground or on the ice there. So kind of a cool thing. Nice take on the baseball hockey game in a baseball stadium. So, um, but again, 2-1 score. Had the highest ratings for any uh, NHL game on cable TV that was broadcast on TNT. I'm not a real big fan of them. This year, we're having the NHL final on TNT as well. I'm not a real big fan of it just being on TNT. I know CBS is a broadcast partner of Turner, and would like to see like the Stanley Cup Finals games being on CBS. I'm not a fan of it being on cable only. And yeah, we got 1.8 million people watching the Winter Classic, but I'm sure there are quite a few more watching the college bowl games that were kind of they were crazy, but they're the New Year's Day games, or at least the January 2nd games were kind of eh. But yeah, so next year, the news for the Seattle Kraken is that next year the Seattle Kraken will be hosting the 2024 Winter Classic. It'll be held in an indoor stadium. Well, it's a retractable roof stadium, T-Mobile Park, which is the home of the Seattle Mariners. And so good for Seattle getting a outdoor game this quickly. I still would love to see some more of the southern teams get an outdoor game. I know it's a lot harder to do an outdoor game in Tampa or Miami than it is to do it in Seattle. But I like to see some of these teams be rewarded for being in the league and getting themselves an outdoor game. But Seattle versus Vegas next year, January 1st or 2nd, whatever, it depends on if the um, NFL has games on that day, because NFL has pretty much just chased everyone out of any type of participation whenever they're playing. So um, let's see. The NHL's revamped the way that they're um, doing the All Star Game. So in the past, it's been they do have the rule that one representative per team, and they've toyed with how they've done it. They've had like a All Star fan vote for the last person in, kind of like doing what baseball does. But baseball is much more democratic in how the teams are chosen. Um, so this year, the NHL is picking the one representative from each team. So 32 players will be named tonight during the Washington versus Columbus game during each intermission. So I'm thinking one conference, like the Eastern Conference, goes first, and then the Western Conference goes in the second intermission. Um, and then the fans get to vote on the final 12 players, three from each division. So again, it's the 3-on-3 format. So you're going to be able to pick three players for each team. First one is the you're going to have two skaters that you can choose from, and then one goalie from each division. Um, it's okay. I'm not a huge fan of actually the All Star game itself. I do like the skills competition. Um, I think if you just did an all-star type weekend where they were just doing skills, kind of like what the NFL is doing now, going to more of a skills-based format, um, would be better. But they're going to continue to play the 3-on-3 games. 3-on-3 hockey is entertaining, but I do think that at some point it's going to get a little old. And I think really the NHL is just going to go to a skills-based competition. Um, with nothing really massively on the line other than getting all the players together and showing them off for a couple days. So let's see. Rangers have signed Jimmy Vesey to a 2-year contract extension. Um, not breaking the bank by any stretch of the imagination. It's an $800,000 annual average value for that contract, so a little bit above league minimum. Jimmy VC has bounced around a little bit, but have had two semi decent runs with the Rangers. Played for the Sabres for a little bit. Played for I believe Toronto for a little bit, but is back with the Rangers this season and has earned a contract extension. Um, Cam Talbot. So, if you haven't been following the NHL, the owner of the Ottawa Senators, Eugene Melnick, passed away over the summer, and his family has decided to sell the team. And anytime a Canadian team goes up for sale, there's just all kinds of swirl around it. Who's going to buy the team? Are they going to keep the team in Canada? all indications that the team will stay in Ottawa. I don't think there's any desire to move a team out of Canada at this point, or move a team within Canada. I think this is there. There's no chance that Ottawa moves to another city. What I am thinking is the Ottawa Senators are going to get bought up by a consortium of folks. One of those folks that has been rumored is Ryan Reynolds. Ryan Reynolds, famous Canadian actor, is a Senators fan and has been rumored to be a part of a group that wants to buy the Senators. Ryan did go in to buy Wrexham FC in the English Premier League, or wherever they play at. Not in the Premier League; they're a lower division team in English soccer. Um, but he wants to get his feet wet in NHL hockey. He's Canadian, proud Canadian, and so Cam Talbot has decided to throw a little nod even before the sale would go through to Deadpool and Ryan Reynolds. So he put Deadpool on his mask. It's very cool. If you get a chance, check out the mask. I really like it. Has Deadpool holding a Canadian flag, unfurled in the breeze and everything. So good on Cam Talbot and Ottawa. Hopefully, you guys get a owner soon. It was a long, strange several years after the Senators had gone to the Eastern Conference Finals and were an overtime goal away from competing, I believe, in 2017 for the Stanley Cup, only to lose to Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh's second consecutive Stanley Cup. And it fell apart fairly quickly. There was lots of griping about the ownership and what had gone on with the in the room with guys like Eric Carlson and uh, folks like that, and how the team got torn down so quickly. But they're on the way back up. They've got a good young team, Matthew Kachuk. They've got Stutzla and Batherson and just a bunch of really good young players. Um, so, whoever is walking into the Ottawa situation is going to have a pretty good team right out the gate. Maybe not this season totally. They've had their moments, but in the years to come, Ottawa is going to be a force in the league. Let's see. Speaking of Canada, Canada will be taking on Czechia tonight. I talked about that a little bit ago. World Junior Gold Medal game. In fact, that game is going on. Um, the Canadian team beat the United States last night 6-2. The win was not without controversy. The United States had at one point tied it at 3, only to have that goal called back, and went down 4-2. They scored a goal early in the third period to bring it to 4-3, and again that goal was called back. So two different goals were called back on the United States. They still, allowed a couple goals afterwards. I'm not going to say that the United States was a better team than Canada in this tournament. Canada had several first round picks and the presumptive first round pick in this draft, and was full value for the victory. In fact, Connor Bedard, that predicted first overall pick, he had a goal and assist in that game. He is as of now, I haven't seen if he's scored so far yet, but had 9 goals and 14 assists. So it's the second highest number of points in a World Junior Championship behind Peter Forsberg, who had 30 one year, which is just insane to think about. Um, but Connor Bedard is doing nothing to hurt his reputation as the presumptive first overall pick. I know that people kind of came into the contest and thought, perhaps Adam Fantilli can make a challenge to him, but Connor Bedard has just blown everyone out in this tournament and will definitely be the number one overall pick. I mentioned the bronze medal game. That thing was a wild game today. I turned it on. It was 1-0 in the second period. The United States was leading on a first period goal. Um, and then it was a punch up for the rest of the game. Back and forth, back and forth. United States went up 3-1 at one point, only to see the Swedes tie it. United States went up to 5-3, only to see the Swedes come back and tie it before the end of the second period. It was 5-5 going into the third period. Um, U.S. Uh, the Swedes actually took a lead. The U.S. Scored 2 goals late to take another lead. Um, and with just, I think, 21 seconds left, the Swedes tied it um, at 7 going into overtime. And Chaz Lucius picked up a, I don't even know why the goaltender didn't pounce on the rebound, but the puck was beside his net. Lucius picked it up, went backhand, put it in the net. The United States wins 8-7 in the bronze medal game. So the United States wins bronze medal. And again, right now the gold medal game is going on for Czechia and Canada. First meeting. So these teams met in the very first game of the tournament, and Czechia won that game 5-2. A lot of criticism for the Canadian team coming out of that game. They were too flashy. They tried two different times to do a Michigan goal in the game, and both of those failed. And Czechia just played a great straightforward game and won it. And but I always say that you learn more in defeat than you do in victory. So I always give in tournaments like this, I always give the team that lost the first matchup the advantage because they know what they did wrong and they know how to fit what they need to fix. It's much harder to, uh, unless there's just such a talent gap, and there isn't here. Um, it's much harder to maintain and win that second game than it is to be the team that lost the first game and come back and win that second one. So I'm going to give Canada the advantage in this one, um, and we'll try and check on the score of the game. Let's go to our injury. Yeah, so we talked earlier about the injuries to Casey. I'm sorry, Tristan Jari. Not sure how long he's out for. Probably a little while with the lower body injury, and then long term IR for Jake DeBrusk for the Bruins. Some other news: the Blues are just reeling right now. We talked last week about Torrey Krug going on long term IR. At least 6 weeks. He'll be reevaluated at that point and determine whether he needs to continue. It sounds like he might. This week, the Blues found out they're going to lose two of their top offensive cogs, Ryan O'Reilly, their best centerman, and Vladimir Tarasenko. Ryan O'Reilly's out at least 6 weeks with a broken foot, and Tarasenko is going to be out at least 4 weeks with a hand injury. Now, Blues are not that far off of the playoff race. I think they're in fifth in the Central Division. And, got a comment. Let's see. Dan says the Bruins rule. Not on Saturday, Dan. Not on Saturday. The Sabres beat them in overtime. But let's see where we at. Oh yeah, so Tarasenko's out 4 weeks, and the Bruins or the Blues are not in a bad position right now, but they are in a precarious position now that they've got three of their top tier talent on their team in injured reserve. So can they maintain? Can they keep close to that playoff race? The team that's ahead of them, just barely ahead of them in the race right now, is Colorado. Colorado also has been facing all kinds of injuries, and will start getting some of their players back fairly soon. So, can the Blues keep close enough to the pack to make it worth their while, or do they throw it in, trade off some assets, and shoot for Bedard? Not sure. They could go either way, although I think they're a little far behind in the Bedard race, especially even with their own division with Chicago and Arizona. Let's see. We are getting some good news from the injury front. It's not as many injuries as we've had over the last few weeks. We've got more good than bad news. One of the good news stories is that Max Pacioretty, who was traded over the summer from Vegas to Carolina, looks like he's going to be coming back early. We talked about that last week that he had been skating in a jersey where he was allowed contact. He had an Achilles injury, so he had been out since the trade. They actually traded for him knowing that he had the Achilles injury. Um, but the top team in the Metropolitan Division is getting healthier, and that's a scary thing. They're already 5 points up on second place New Jersey, and Max Pacioretty is just a great goal scorer adding to that lineup. So Um, let's see. Nicholas Backstrom and Tom Wilson both have not played a game for the Washington Capitals this year. Backstrom had offseason surgery called hip resurfacing surgery, which sounds absolutely awful. Um, been having hip issues the last couple seasons, so he decided to do the resurfacing surgery. There was talk that he might retire. He, to his credit, said that he never thought for a moment that he would retire at this point. Um, but he is getting close. He's not going to play tonight against Columbus, but could play in the next couple of games. Also, Tom Wilson, he was injured in the first game of the playoffs against the Florida Panthers last year. Um, who knows if Tom Wilson had been healthy the entire series, if because they went 7 games with Florida and um, had some chances to win that series. I think they were up 3 games to 2 at one point in overtime, and Wilson's a pretty clutch player. Although the old host Travis Rednick is probably punching the screen right now because of uh, uh, me referencing Tom Wilson, but Tom Wilson had a torn ACL, had that fixed, so he's back. Not again, he's not going to skate tonight, but should be coming back in the next couple of games. So the Caps, who have been pretty hot the last month and a half, are getting some of their pieces back. So how what is the mood how many moves are they going to make towards the end of the season? Alex Ovechkin's been rolling, getting his duo back will be good for him. Carter Hart is close to returning for the Flyers for after missing 3 games due to an upper body injury. So good news for the Flyers. Elvis Merzlikins is set to return from an illness that kept him out 8 games since middle of December for Columbus, and that was probably allowing too many goals as the illness. Not been a good season for Merzlikins or the Columbus Blue Jackets so far this year, and not going to get any easier tonight with the Capitals coming to town. Jack Eichel looks like he's coming back for the Vegas Golden Knights tonight against the Pittsburgh Penguins. Um, he's been out for 11 games with a lower body injury. Um, that's not surprised. Jack Eichel has had injury issues throughout his career. Not just, I'm not even going to harp on the neck. The neck was That's a completely separate issue, but lower body injuries has really hindered Jack Eichel throughout his career. But Vegas still leads the Pacific Division because really nobody in the Pacific Division really wants that division. It appears like. Let's see. Let's talk about the Sabres beat. So this week on the Sabres beat, they did it for number 3. If anybody who follows sports, probably you didn't even need to follow sports. Just if you heard anything out of Monday night, um, it was a good sports day. You had the Winter Classic, you had the bowl games, and everybody's sports fans were settling in to watch a Monday night football game. And Bill's safety, Damar Hamlin, took a hit to the chest, and it caused cardiac arrest on the field. First time in ages that anybody can remember a NFL game having you know, really a player death on the field. They were able to revive him, get him in an ambulance and to the hospital, and he is doing much better now, although still not completely out of the woods. But apparently, he's communicating, can move arms and legs, and all that stuff. Um, so, uh, the entire community of Buffalo has been hit by a series of things this winter, especially the winter weather. 2 different storms that were just buried the city. One that killed over 25 people, um, and this just kind of added to it. And the next night, the Sabres were in Washington D.C. I'm sorry, Wednesday night. They were the Sabre. Yeah, it was Tuesday night. The Sabres were in Washington D.C. Um, had these love for 3 T-shirts on, and it really was kind of a very symmetrical moment in that game because Tage Thompson scored his 30th goal in overtime to complete his hat trick, 3rd goal of the game, and with 3 minutes into overtime, um, and his 3rd hat trick of the year. So lots of symmetry in what happened there that night for the Buffalo Sabres. So they're doing it for 3. I I've been hesitant to say anything about the Sabres and how I feel that they're doing. My whole goal with the Sabres this year was not to be eliminated by, like Christmas or Thanksgiving or New Year's, and they've proven that they're not. This is a playoff caliber team. I hesitate to say that because, as a Buffalo fan, the floor can always fall out at any time. Um, but this is a playoff caliber team. Watching this team on the ice, watching that they've gone through adversity, they've had injuries on the back end, they've had injuries to goaltenders. They are they find different ways to win, whether it is, Tage Thompson scoring a hat trick, Casey Middlestat scoring late to tie up a game, um, you know, a set play to tie the game against Boston to force overtime, and then just uh, dogged determination to stay in games. This is a playoff caliber team. Whether it makes the playoffs or not will depend. What do we do at the trade deadline? What can the Sabres remain healthy on the forward cores? That's where the Sabres have had luck is that they haven't had a whole lot of injuries on to their core forwards. The worst thing that's really happened to the Sabres forward line is um, uh, when Jeff Skinner got suspended for a couple games. Um, Kind of threw them into a little bit of chaos. They still won games during that period, but can they stay healthy? If they stay healthy, they should be competing down the stretch. Um, One thing I will say though, and people are like, okay, well, you got to watch out for, uh, you know, Detroit's behind us, Ottawa's behind us, Florida's behind us. As a Sabres fan right now, you need to actually turn your focus to the Metro Division because um, there's a gap between the Sabres and Tampa, the 9-point gap right now. Um, but the Metro Division has 6 teams right now that are above the Sabres. So there's no guarantee that the Sabres we could finish 4th in the division, but miss out on the playoffs because the Metro Division has 5 teams that finish above the Sabres in standing. So Sabres fans should be looking at the games with the Rangers, games with the Islanders, um, and even the Capitals and the Penguins with as much interest as they do any in division game because they need to understand that yeah, we can finish 4th, but if we don't pick up points against all those teams, we're not going to make the playoffs either way. Then we'd have to jump up and knock Tampa, Toronto, or Boston, which are very unlikely. Tampa would be the most likely since they're only 9 points up, but knocking one of those teams out of the playoffs, and that'd be a stretch. If the Sabres make the playoffs, it'll be in that 4th position, uh, having to play Boston in that first round because I think Boston's uh, head and shoulders above all the other teams in that division. Let's go to our teams of the week. Yeah, so teams of the week. Let's go to our Metro Division team of the week. That's the Carolina Hurricanes. They are 9-1 in the last 10, and they're getting healthier. Like I mentioned, with Max Pacioretty rejoining the lineup or joining the lineup for the first time. The Carolina Hurricanes are going to get it healthier, and that's only good stuff for the Hurricanes. 9-1 in the last 10. They just lost their last time out against the Rangers, but still I don't anticipate them going on a long losing streak, kind of like how New Jersey did after their long winning streak. So, my cold team in the division is the Pittsburgh Penguins. The problem with them is they're only 500 over the last 10, so it's not like they're you know awful, but they are woefully inconsistent. And right now they're out of the playoffs. They're 6th in the division, and you know, will the real Pittsburgh Penguins stand up? Because they'll go off on a 8-game winning streak and then they'll lose 7 in a row. So they're kind of like the Blues of the East. They'll go on a long run, they'll go on a long cold streak. Right now, they're on a cold streak, so they've got to pull it out, or they risk getting passed by significantly on in a significant amount by teams like the Rangers and even the Sabres, as I was talking about, uh, keeping contact with everybody in that division. Let's see. Team of the week in the Atlantic Division is going to be Boston. Winners of the Winter Classic. No big surprise there. 7-0-3, just like their entire home record this season. Undefeated in regulation in the last 10. They're undefeated at home in regulation. The Sabres did beat them in overtime the other day, but Boston just rolling. Um, it's a tough team, but I will say that if the Sabres can get into a 7-game series with them, that'll be an interesting series because um, Tage Thompson scoring against them, Jeff Skinner scoring against them. Um, Even the young guys are scoring. So it would be an interesting series. That the top two lines for the Bruins are just absolutely devastating. Getting Krejci back was such a win for the Bruins in the offseason, and we're seeing it with how they're playing this year. Cold team in the Atlantic Division is Montreal. They've lost officially 5 games in a row. I think it's 6 games with an overtime loss. They're 1-8-1 in the last 10. They're fully engaged in the Connor Bedard tank battle. Uh, their record puts them over Florida. Florida, I'll mention briefly. They're not my cold team of the week, but mentioning them briefly because they are seventh in the Atlantic Division right now, behind Ottawa. So um, I don't think anybody would have had Florida in the bottom half of the division going into the season, and that they're there this late in the season is kind of shocking. I'm hearing lots of rumblings about the big difference this year is Paul Maurice being behind the bench. I don't I don't hold too much to that. I think the real thing is, yes, they did get Kachuk in the that trade, and Kachuk's a great player, and he's not the reason why they're losing, but losing somebody like Jonathan Huberdeau, who made all the players on his line better, has definitely impacted the Florida Panthers. Team of the week in the Central Division, we've got Minnesota. They're 8-2 in the last 10. They're hitting on all cylinders right now. They really rocketed up the Central Division standings. They're in third right now. They could easily challenge for top two places in the division. Um, Watched the some of the game last night against Tampa, and they really made Tampa look rather pedestrian. Kaprizov had a goal. Just a good looking team right now. So good on Minnesota for what they're doing. Chicago, I don't even have to change this graphic from week to week. They're in free fall. They've been in free fall. They'll stay in free fall. They're 1-9 in the last 10, 5 in a row lost, and they're getting beaten down every time they go out in the ice. So it's it's not that they're losing 2-1 games or 3-2 games. They're losing 9-1 type games. So it's not looking good for the well, if you're watching the World Junior Hockey Championships, it's looking good for Chicago if you're looking at Connor Bedard. Uh, but one piece of bad news is that Kane went out of the last game against Tampa with a lower body injury. I haven't heard anything if it's a long term injury or not, but that will be something to look at because Patrick Kane is, of course, a big trade piece for the Chicago Blackhawks going into the trade deadline for them to better their position to try and come out of what they did to themselves. Team of the week in the Pacific Division. Let's take a look at the Los Angeles Kings. Uh, I said earlier that nobody wants to win the Pacific Division. There's nobody like overly just. Oh my gosh, they're amazing. Los Angeles does have the last best 10-game run in the division at 7-2-1. But if you look at their record, they have a -5 goal differential in the season. Um, they shouldn't be second. So that means they're winning close games. They are getting blown out in games that they lose. I know when Buffalo played them, they dropped a number of goals on Los Angeles. But man, they got to get better on the defensive end. If I'm going to take them seriously in the playoffs, because being a minus goal differential, even being second place in the division, is not a good look. Coldest team in the Pacific Division. Vancouver is 4-6 in the last 10. Again, that's not awful, but the vultures are starting to circle. I was listening to the post-game show, the other night when they lost. Uh, the and Vancouver media and Vancouver fans are very famous for, being, uh they've actually been ranked worse than Toronto fans as far as quality of fans in the NHL. It's a tough market to play in, but it was very down. They were like, with that loss, we should throw the towel in the in the season, trade off, guys like Brock Besser and JT Miller and get them out and start a rebuild. It might be a little early for that, but yeah, the general idea of that is that it's getting late in the season for them to be this far back, um, for them to recover. They said, we waited maybe a little bit too long last year to make the move for Bruce Boudreau, and we fell short. There's just some fundamental issues with Vancouver that they need to address, and it's primarily on the back end. Um, Not goaltending, but their defense is, uh, outside of Quinn Hughes, there's not much there. I mean, there's Tyler Myers, who's had a great run with Buffalo and has been kind of pedestrian with every other team that he's been with. Um, and I really can't tell you, Oliver Ekman Larson's there. I It should be a better defense, but it's not. So um, there's just lots of stuff to do in Vancouver, and I don't know if it's on Bruce Boudreau for uh, to fix it, or the reason why they're not winning. I don't think it's on him. I think it's just poorly constructed team. So uh, final thing, we got the 3 stars of the month, so we didn't have a 3 stars of the week put out. The NHL only does the stars of the month on the first week of the month, even if it does take some of the days of of January. But 3 stars of the month this month. Uh, Alexander Ovechkin had 13 goals, 9 assists, 22 points in 15 games. Of course, he had the goal 800. He's already up to 808. He had goal 800, 802 to break Gordie Howe's record. So, of course, he's going to be first star of the month. Then you go to Connor McDavid, of course, uh, 2 points a game, 17 or 14 goals, 17 assists, 31 points in 15 games. Uh, that just because of the 800 number is the reason why he's the second star. Uh, Even more remarkable than Ovechkin's numbers, Tage Thompson, the third star of the month, he had 13 goals, 9 assists, 22 points. So same point production for Thompson as Ovechkin, but he did it in 11 games. So Tage Thompson really getting noticed this season. I wouldn't be surprised if he's the guy that's announced as the uh, representative of the Buffalo Sabres. It's going to be between him and Rasmus Dahlin. I think Tage has done more in the last few months than Darlene, although Darlene has not done badly. I just think that Tage is just standing out that much more right now. But that's it for the show this week. I really appreciate those of you watching, those of you on TikTok. Howdy there on TikTok, or yeah, because I can watch the screen here. Thanks to those on Facebook and uh, uh, Twitch. Really appreciate you watching. Just a quick perusal of the scores. Some games have started. Just a couple minutes in each of these games, but no score. Coyotes, Flyers, Rangers, Canadians, Predators, Hurricanes, Kraken, Maple Leafs, Blues, Devils, and Capitals, Blue Jackets, all scoreless early in the game. So get out there and watch some NHL hockey and enjoy the evening. And we will talk to everyone next week. Thanks for watching, everybody.